Manish Gupta would be leaving us, and we thank them for their presence, and we hand over mementos to both our honored guests. Mr. Chandrasekhar Ghosh, kindly hand over the memento to Mr. Gupta.
And we would request Adrian Aurul Raha to please present the memento to Sri Chandrasekhar Ghosh.
Well, thank you once again for being with us on this occasion. Let's give them a big hand as they depart. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll continue with our proceedings. Some of the remarks that were made by the Member of Parliament and Mr. Ghosh, India and China, we come back to the theme when we are looking east. We're talking about the two most populous countries in the world. In your lifetime, not in your children's lifetime, but in your lifetime, in a few years from now, India will become more populous than China. And not only that, India is unique in the world. We're the only large country where half our population is below the age of 25 or 26. Demographers have a debate about how young India is and how young India is going to continue to be. Be that as it may, in more ways than one, the future of the planet depends on these countries. So it's not just simply looking east, we are looking actually at the state of the planet we live in. People talk about the United States of America having, 300 million out of 7 billion people? That's, less than 5%. But the population of the United States of America, they even after the Great Recession, they still consume close to a quarter of the planet's resources. Put very simply, assume every citizen of India and China started consuming like the average citizen of the United States of America. You need 2 planets Earth, or more than 2 planets Earth. You don't have them. So in a sense, the way forward, economic development, sustainable economic development, is these 2 countries have to show the rest of the world the way. And reference was made to Amartya Sen, Kaushik Basu, democracy, absence of democracy, mixed economy, communism, capitalism. These are the subjects that we're going to discuss today, and I'll request all the speakers to take a nuanced view, not only look at what is positive, but also look at the challenges that lie ahead. So may I now request Sri Debashish Sen, who belongs to the Indian Administrative Service. He's Additional Chief Secretary, Department of Information and Technology and Electronics here in this government of West Bengal. He's also Chairman and Managing Director of the Housing Infrastructure Development Corporation, and also the Chairman of the Nabodiganto Industrial Township Authority, both of the state government. Your special remarks, sir.
Thank you very much. I assure you special remarks means short remarks, so I won't bore you for long. I will only argue one point, that is, if East, Northeast and Look East is to be reality and it has to be an economically significant impact, we need to embrace technology. Bas, full stop. My argument is over, I might as well step down. But just to add a little flesh to it. The most populous, we all know about IPO, we all do. But do we know about ICO? Not initial public offering, but initial cryptocurrency offering. According to the latest issue of The Economist, it says that $3.2 billion were mobilized this year, 2017. in cryptocurrency and ICOs, initial coin offerings. Likewise, the most famous cryptocurrency, that is the Bitcoin. It has appreciated 700%, 700% this year. I am not saying, economist is saying. So, technology is something that will bring us prosperity very good, and there is a great opportunity of leapfrogging into the highest realm if we are able to strategize properly. What I mean to say is that this emerging ecosystem in technology, starting with blockchain, analytics, cybersecurity, and AI, these are the frontier systems in technology in which Shillong, Kalyani, Bhubaneswar, and Seattle are all equally placed. The world is really level and flat. And if we are able to create that ecosystem of working together, creating a co-working scenario, I think we will have achieved a very great promise of really catching up with the rest of the world. And for this, if I may be slightly parochial, I may say that the government of West Bengal is already drawing up plans to have an analytics city in Kalyani, to have a fintech hub in Newtown, Rajarhat, and a center of excellence on cyber security in Newtown. And if all the states of Eastern India, and indeed whole of India, and indeed whole of South and Southeast Asia can really get into a cooperative technological pact, we would have jumped the economic barrier so far in the traditional world very quickly. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Debashish Sen, for your short and very special remarks. He's indeed, as he was talking and he was wondering why there was a noise coming from his pocket. It's not, there's no reason, I mean, it's obvious, you know. I don't know how many of you are aware that in this city that you live in, and in most parts of urban India, today there are more SIMs than human beings, S-I-M. In case you don't know the meaning of that acronym, that little chip that goes into your mobile, Subscriber Identity Module. আজকে মানুষের চেয়ে বেশি চলায়মান দূরভাষ যন্ত্র এই শহরে আর এই দূরভাষ যন্ত্রগুলো অত্যন্ত চালাক they're extremely smart phone instruments as you rightly pointed out. Today you carry your office and the world in the palm of your hand. So we're going to look at the regional perspective, the regional connectivity in this part of the world through a global perspective. As we speak, more than half of the planet use the internet at least once. Perhaps that proportion is about 60% as we talk. Over 1 billion messages are exchanged every 24 hours, any 24-hour cycle, using over-the-top services like WhatsApp. I must tell you that the day is not far when the total number of users on Facebook will increase, will go beyond the combined population of India and China. But I warn you, please don't believe that every person who's your friend on Facebook will actually come to you when you're unwell and help you out. We live in a new world. The internet has changed human society in ways that very few of us could have imagined. So it's now my honor and my privilege to ask the diplomats stationed here in Kolkata to look to make their remarks and look at how they see Kolkata, they see the East. So may I request Mr. Craig L. Hall, Consul General of the United States of America in Kolkata, to make his remarks.
Good morning, distinguished members of the panel, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the leadership of the Bengal Chamber and also to Senators Kaye and General Roy for organizing today's event and for inviting me. It's an honor. South Asia today is one of the least economically integrated regions in the world. Intra-regional trade as a percentage of total trade in the region has languished between 4 and 5%. In comparison, intra-regional trade for ASEAN stands at 25%. However, we know from history this wasn't always the case. This region used to be an integrated entity bound by a rich tradition of dialogue, trade, and cultural exchange. Situated on the littoral of the Bay of Bengal and the Indian Ocean, Calcutta has long been a driver of regional and international trade. And the Northeast region is one of Asia's most strategic locations, bordering Bangladesh, Bhutan, China, Myanmar, and Nepal. While this region stands to benefit substantially from India's Act East policy, much of the Northeast, with its mountains and jungle topography, presents real challenges in the building of physical infrastructure. I've had the privilege of traveling to all 8 northeastern states and have discovered that simply moving from one state to the other can be a challenge. While air connectivity has improved substantially, many travelers still have to use Calcutta or Guwahati as hubs because of the limited interstate flights. Therefore, much needs to be done to improve intrastate connectivity along with inter-regional connectivity. And I'm glad to note that the government of India is addressing this challenge through the various projects under its Act East policy. And in the spirit of mentioning some of the other challenges facing this part of the country related to the economic underdevelopment and the lack of connectivity is a terrorist problem that I think many of us are not aware of. I was surprised to learn that in 2016, the 3rd largest number of terrorist attacks in the world happened in India. And among those, most of them happened in Bihar and Jharkhand. And living here, I think I was surprised to know that. But after ISIS in Iraq and the Taliban in Afghanistan, the next most active terrorist group were Maoist in India, and most of those attacks happened in the Northeast. So there are many challenges to overcome, and they're all interrelated. I'd like, if I could, to talk just a minute about a U.S. perspective on an Indo-Pacific strategy, a natural complement to India's Act East policy. The Pacific and the Indian Oceans have linked the United States and India for centuries. President Trump and Prime Minister Modi are committed more than any other leaders before them to building an ambitious partnership that benefits not only our 2 great democracies, but other sovereign nations working toward greater peace and stability. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has said, as we look to the next 100 years, it's vital that the Indo-Pacific, a region so central to U.S. and India's shared history, continue to be free and open. The world's center of gravity is shifting to the heart of the Indo-Pacific. By the year 2050, India may boast the 2nd largest economy in the world. India's population, with a median age of 25, is expected, and by some measures already has, surpassed that of China's. And if it's not already passed, it'll certainly happen in the next decade. Building on our long-standing economic partnership is essential. The U.S.-India economic relationship is a crucial factor driving greater security and prosperity for both our peoples and the region. And last year, U.S.-India bilateral trade hit a record of roughly $115 billion, which relatively speaking is a very small number, which is why U.S. and India leadership has challenged our businesses to raise that level of bilateral trade to $500 billion a year, which still, by the way, wouldn't put India in the top 5 of U.S. trading partners. And if we think about India's economy growing enough to result in bilateral trade with the United States, among other partners, increasing from $115 billion to $500 billion, it's very difficult to imagine that happening without Eastern and Northeastern India participating in it fully. Because if you imagine a different scenario where India's economy in the West and the South continues to grow, and if by one metric or one data point, if India's bilateral trade with the U.S. grows to $500 billion a year from $115 billion a year, and the East and the Northeast of India don't participate in that growth, the stability that's already there will only worsen. So we have to think together about how Eastern and Northeastern India are going to participate in that growth, not just within India, but with the international community. Already we've made progress, and the United States and India have built a sturdy foundation of economic cooperation as we look for more avenues of expansion. The U.S. and India are proud to co-host the Global Entrepreneurship Summit in Hyderabad later this month, where the spirit of private enterprise will be on full display. This Global Entrepreneurship Summit, the first ever to be hosted in South Asia, is a clear example of how President Trump and Prime Minister Modi are promoting innovation, expanding job opportunities, and finding new ways to strengthen both of our economies. The theme of this year's Global Entrepreneurship Summit, Women First, Prosperity for All, is a recognition of the importance of women entrepreneurs and the role they play in making their communities and our countries more prosperous and more secure. Prosperity in the 21st century and beyond will spring from emerging innovations in the Indo-Pacific region. This is where the United States and India have a tremendous competitive advantage. Our open societies generate high-quality ideas at the speed of free thought. Helping regional partners establish similar systems will deliver solutions to 21st century problems. For that to happen, greater regional connectivity is essential. The World Bank estimates that with barriers removed and customs procedures streamlined, intra-regional trade in South Asia would nearly quadruple from the current $28 billion to over $100 billion a year. The United States and India are increasingly global partners with growing strategic convergence. Indians and Americans don't just share an affinity for democracy, we share a vision for the future. The emerging Delhi-Washington Strategic Partnership stands upon a shared commitment to upholding the rule of law, freedom of navigation, universal values, and free trade. The United States and India are two bookends of stability on either side of the globe, standing for greater security and prosperity for our citizens, people in the region, and around the world. Even as the United States and India build on our partnership, we welcome those who want to strengthen the rule of law and further prosperity and security in the region. We continue to build on our engagement and cooperation with Indo-Pacific democracies. We're already capturing the benefits of our important trilateral engagement between the United States, India, and Japan. The more we expand cooperation on issues like maritime domain awareness, cybersecurity, and humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, the more the nations of the Indo-Pacific region will benefit. Many Indo-Pacific nations have limited alternatives when it comes to infrastructure investment programs and financing schemes, which often fail to promote jobs or prosperity for the people they claim to help. We believe India and the United States must lead multilateral efforts to develop transparent, high-standard, regional lending mechanisms, tools that will actually help nations instead of saddling them with mounting debt. The United States welcomes the growing power and influence of the Indian people in this region and throughout the world. We are eager to grow our relationship even as India grows as a world leader and power. The strength of the Indo-Pacific has always been the interaction among many peoples, governments, economies, and cultures. We are ready to act on our vision of a free and open Indo-Pacific, supported and protected by two strong pillars of democracy, the United States and India. And happy to know that there are partners and leaders like the Bengal Chamber and Sinners K who are leading the effort in this region not only to raise awareness about the importance of expanded regional connectivity, but also to lead the way on the ground. So thank you for inviting me today, and I wish the seminar every success. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. The next speaker is Mr. Kazuya Nakajo. He's the Chief Director General of JETRO, which is an acronym for the Japan External Trade Organization, which works under the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry in the government of Japan. So it's over to you, Mr. Kazuya Nakajo. I'm sorry if I've not been able to pronounce your name as well as I should.
Thank you, Chairman. It is a great honor for me to have this opportunity to speak at this conference. And actually, I'm from Delhi, and I'm really pleased to escape from that very polluted city. I can breathe, and I can relieve my lungs and throat. So it's like gas chamber to Bengal chamber. Thank you. So, first, let me just a short introduction about our organization. This organization, JETRO, is a government agency established to promote mutual trade and investment between Japan and the rest of the world. And in India, we have been operating for 51 years. Currently, our mainly engaged in promoting bilateral investment, Japan to India and India to Japan as well. Most of you may be aware that we have taken up the function of acting as a window to facilitate both Japanese and Indian companies in expanding their business in both countries. So, given this background, I would like to appraise you how India could establish a hotspot investment destination for Japanese companies, not only, especially in this eastern regions. There are several challenges to be met while creating mutually beneficial business relationships between two countries. The foremost issue may be overcoming the distance. Of course, flying direct, and now there are many flights a day. And it takes only 8 to 9 hours between India and Japan. However, in terms of industrial linkage, it is much weaker than the most of Southeast Asian countries. According to a private research institution survey, there are 11,000 companies operating in ASEAN 10 countries. 11,000 companies, against 1,300 of India. This is the figure of 2016. Of course, the difference may be backed by the element of geopolitical distance and also a historical background. But I also point out that India and Japan could do more to facilitate additional Japanese investment to this arena. So how could we overcome the distance and obstacles? Most of Japanese companies' perspective for Indian market is that it is growing and promising market. But it is also recognized as an isolated single market. So it is big and growing, but it's isolated. Hence, Japanese business entrepreneurs could not utilize their advantage of working in a network, as they could enjoy the widespread value chain of the East Asian nations. Especially in auto sector, which is a Japanese investment focus in this country. However, I could observe positive changes and improvements in work these days. First point is installation of GST. With this, India came to be a true unified market for taxation, and it may cause a revolution in the movement of goods and logistics. Earlier, cargo was stopped at every state border and taxes are levied. Trucks are queuing up for inspection, and it used to cause a huge loss with the cost and time. With elimination of this barrier, goods are more freely distributed within the Indian subcontinent. The second point is increase of public and private investment toward transport infrastructure, as many of the speakers stated. In India, even if physical obstacles were eliminated, without board transportation capability, goods do not flow. With east dedicated freight corridor, highway construction, and several deep sea ports under Sagarumala project. So these will definitely contribute to the efficiency of logistics. I would also add that on the other side of the ocean, some infrastructure projects by the Southeast Asian countries have been initiated to increase cargo capacity addressed to India and South Asian countries. So Japanese industry has already diversified its edge to Southeast Asian nations. And therefore, the only method for India to overcome the distance between India and Japan is to generate connectivity with multinational value chain in Southeast Asian countries. Some Japanese companies have already started their global value chain operations in India. So, for example, Indian operator of